right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I do not know, or I don't know. I should say I do not know because that doesn't sound too educated when you start talking. But I don't know exactly where in the world that you may be, and so that's why I say good morning, good evening, and good afternoon because right now in the Philippines, it's right in the middle of the morning, and here in in Denver, Colorado, where I'm at. It's about right in the evening afternoon. It's funny, Ronald. I was just talking to, as we have daylight savings here in the United States, and it doesn't make any sense anymore. I mean, I understood it when there was agriculture communities, and you had to stay out late in the summer so that you could work and bring in the harvest, and people could eat and that kind of stuff. And these days, we really don't need it. But it was funny because I was just, I assume, in summertime that they're like, it doesn't get dark till 9. And I'm like, no, it doesn't get dark till 9:30. And they're going, like, you eat dinner in the light time? And I'm like, yeah, doesn't everybody eat dinner in the light time at some point? At some
Right.
point during the year, don't you have dinner when it's like, no, it's always dark at 5 o'clock our whole year round. I'm like, oh, that's not good. That sucks, actually. I like
Right.
having some evenings and sitting out by the river, the lake, or the whatever it is, and just enjoying watching the sunset. And it's after work time. I can't imagine. No, I hate it in December when we shrink our times and then it's like dark at like 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, this is terrible. I don't know.
Exactly.
My dad just got back from Alaska. They were visiting and it didn't get dark at all, during this time of year. And then during the winter, though, it doesn't get light. I the sun's rays on top of me. Yeah, for like 2.5 months, it's just dark all the time. I guess fluorescent lights or whatever. So anyways, I kind of digress. I got excited about thinking about time zones and it's beautiful outside and and I think about Ronald. He's in the East Coast, and I don't know
Yes.
if the folks who are watching this know this, but 65% of the United States population lives in the Eastern time zone. So there's just lots of people. And so most of the people that I actually talk to seem to be from the East Coast, at least 7 out of 10, because that's where everybody lives. And so I just appreciate him being willing to get on a little bit later in the evening. I think they're just kind of stuck with that curse of, it's like 4 o'clock there right now. And so in the West Coast to be able to watch, or like, let's say the Lakers are playing or the I'm at the San Francisco 49ers or something like that. They start like, okay, let's start at 5 o'clock. Well, you all, it's like 9 o'clock. It's like midnight before the game is over. You also have all the people. And so I have some grandkids that just moved out to Boston last July. It's almost been a year. Oh my gosh, I got out there once and I'm like, I miss them. And there's just people everywhere. And then I attend church at in Ballantyne, North Carolina, over stuff in Colorado. But they're going to come out here in August, and we're going to have some fun out here during that time. So, thank you, Ron, for being on. I can't wait to hear your story.
Yes.
I can't hear. I love the shame-free life. That you got onto your shirt, and I can't wait to hear your story. There's some folks that you just meet, and you just know, hey, man, this is going to be a great show. It's going to be a fun show. And I've asked Ronald to tell his story. I told him he could start anywhere in life. He said, "How far do you want me to go back?" And I said, "You could go back as far as you would like to, because we're going to love hearing more about who he is before we talk about what he does." And so, again, thank you for being on. The floor is yours. Start wherever you want, and we'll just move on from there.
Thank you so much, Brian, for being on Journey to Freedom. And also thank you for that teachable moment. I had no idea that 65% of the population are in the East Coast time zone. So thank you so much for that. Um, yeah, so I'm pretty much born. I was born and raised in Charlotte, Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, raised by a wonderful mother and father. Unfortunately, my mother and my father, they divorced when I was very early in age, and she remarried. And my stepfather, he came in to fulfill the role of a father as best as he could. And I think a lot of times we don't understand that, parenting is there's not a silver bullet when it comes to parenting. There is no manual that we can go by when it comes to being a parent. There's certain nuances that we can learn, but by and large, it's hands-on training or what's been passed down from generation to generation. And so my stepfather, he stepped in, showed me all the ropes as far as how to maintain and steward a household financially well. He was a worker at an electric company there uh, within the city, a gas company, and retired from there. My mother, she was a decorated school teacher of 25 years, highly regarded with 4 degrees. And so I had a very interesting childhood. Don't never had any siblings, so uh, I don't know what it's like to have a brother or sister. So I had to master the art of just being alone. And a lot of people will look at the only child as being a blessing, and it is a blessing when you look at it from all of the attention is yours. All of the time is yours. You don't have to share anything with a brother or a sister. But there are times and seasons when you are alone, and there's no type of connection that you can latch onto that's very beneficial because we're social beings. That's how God made us. And so I also encountered bullying growing up as a youth. And we live in a time where bullying is at an all-time high, and not just physically, but we can see how cyberbullying, online bullying, is going to a dangerous level. And so that just led me to a place of feeling very disconnected. And the peers around me at that time, um, they were very dysfunctional to say the least, trying to figure their way through this boyhood, manhood type of thing. We're right now at the intersection of manhood and not knowing which way to go. And we find ourselves looking up to the older guys in our neighborhood, schools, etc., who were popular, had all the girls, had all the cars, the clothes, the jewelry, the shoes, etc. And so when you don't have a man in your life that can be a voice of reason, that can be a teacher, because we understand that women do an amazing and marvelous job when it comes to nurture. But I think that by nature, men, we are actually teachers, and we can become somewhat be a spiritual and emotional compass for our children. But when you don't have that, then now you're left to try to fend through life the best way that you possibly can. And oftentimes we find ourselves connected to peers that are just, again, lost as we are. And I found myself in that situation. And so trying to navigate through young adulthood and looking up to the upperclassmen, and they became a father figure to me. They became the brother that I never had, or brothers that I never had. And that came with a cost, because now I'm imitating instead of becoming my own uh, genuine, the genuine manhood that's on the inside of me. And it's a very it's a very precarious place to be, because oftentimes young men, and I speak to them oftentimes, you know they're just trying to belong. They're just trying to fit in a place where they don't have to worry about being judged. They can be themselves or discover who they are. But if who you are is not good enough according to the standards of society, then you'll become something that you're not while you're forfeiting who you are. And I found myself in that situation. So as I begin to fast forward it through high school and still hanging around guys and still trying to figure out manhood and doing and mimicking what they're doing to just be accepted. So here now we're looking at validation that's on high level, validation, affirmation, and the need to be approved. And being that we're social beings, there's not one person that I have met that doesn't want to be validated in one regard or the other. And so I found myself in that situation, met a young lady now later in life, 30 years old, met a young lady. We started dating, uh, but it was something about that relationship that it just didn't sit well with me. And it's something about God. He will get your attention time and time again if we will allow him to.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't necessarily have to be saved, quote unquote, in order for God to attempt to try to get your attention because of his love for us, because he has foresight, he
Mm-hmm.
has aerial vision, he has the ability to see the ending from the beginning. And when he sees potential danger because of his love for us and because we have a purpose in life, oftentimes those neon lights will go blinking. He will send people our way. He will give us an unction on the inside, like an inner nudging. Stop, slow down, break it off, cut it off, have nothing to do with it, walk away. And those are the telltale signs that I love you and I see what you don't see. And oftentimes, we overstep those boundaries
Mm-hmm.
because we think that we know much better than God, or we think that we can handle a certain situation. So we started dating. I'm starting to feel these emotions more and more to just break it off, just leave her alone. I didn't. And so she was the daughter of a sergeant in internal affairs, and she accused me of assaulting her.
Oh
Now,
gosh.
I come from a lineage of women, and I take that very seriously in this regard of the total respect of a woman,
Mm-hmm.
the total respect of women, children, and the elderly have always been my forte. And so that really rocked me. It broke me mentally, and trying to prove my innocence, being very
Mm-hmm.
vigorous and being very determined, and putting my faith in the judicial system. Unfortunately, a person who has never seen the inside of a jail, never seen the inside of a prison, I was sentenced to prison, 5 years and 1 month.
Wow.
So now here is someone who has come out of one culture and now he's thrusted into another culture,
Mm-hmm.
a culture that has its own rules, a culture that has its own code of quote unquote ethics. And so now I'm taken out of civilian life. And mind you, during this time, now let's just take a look at a full dynamic panoramic view of who I was at that time. I was a single parent of my daughter. I raised her from age 1 to 11. Even though I was trying to figure out what manhood is all about, I still knew that I wanted to give her what I never experienced, and that was a father that was present, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. And so I raised my daughter along with my grandmother at that time when she was alive. She passed away by way of Alzheimer's, and my mother, who passed away as well, she helped me raise my daughter as well. During the time when I was not working, I was working two jobs at that time. I was working for a huge bank,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working part time for an insurance company. In conjunction with that, I was also a college transfer student. So, still looking for manhood, still in pursuit of this thing, but I had enough intellect to know that I need to go to school and it's something that I really enjoy doing. I love learning, so let me continue my pursuit in learning. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was snatched out of one life and placed in another life. And the trauma that it caused. See, and I really want to say for the listeners, um, whenever I speak, I always ask an audience a particular question. How many of you know someone who has been to prison or jail? And there'll be people that will just pop up like popcorn, slipping their hands in the air. Yes, I do. You know, my brother, my uncle, my dad, my mom. Um, how many of you have been to prison yourself or jail? And you'll see a few people, and the shame is upon their countenance. They'll
Yeah.
begin to raise their hand, and some may keep their hands down.
I
And
was.
then, and then I would say, you know what? I submit to you that everyone in this room have been to prison.
Hmm.
You may not have been to a literal prison, but you may have been in a psychological prison, an emotional prison, a social prison. How about in a relational prison? You were in a prison, a relationship that you wanted to get out of, and you felt like a prisoner of war. You
Hmm.
may have been in a financial prison. And so when you look at it from that standpoint of incarceration robs you of liberty, now you can see, I can see whenever I speak, the wheels begin to turn, and now people can understand. Though I have never been to a jail, a literal prison, I can remember the situation in my life where I felt like a prison.
Hmm.
I didn't have freedom. Maybe it was addiction. Maybe it was pornography. Maybe it was multiple sex partners. Maybe it was codependency. And so during that time in prison was a time of I was in a prison within a prison.
Hmm.
And um, it was nothing but just the power and the grace of God that healed my mind, because I had a nervous breakdown, that healed my mind and used me in very unconventional ways. The superintendents or the wardens of each prison that I visited would always come to me and tell me, I've been watching you and I like what you're doing. Or some of my officers have come to me and told me about some of the studies that you're having and you're teaching men how to read. What can I do to help you? What can I do, or what materials do you need in order to continue what you're doing? And I had complete and total access, not only to the warden of each prison, but complete and total access as it relates to the case managers and them moving me along the system and favoring me. So
Hmm.
even when I look at the life of Joseph in Genesis 39, I can really relate to it in so many different ways. However, I still cannot dismiss the fact of the trauma that it caused. So let's just fast forward and pivot for a moment. So now, post prison, having to deal with being a second class citizen, post prison, having to deal with the symptoms of trauma, having to deal with not only acute trauma, that is an incident, a single incident that happens, is very hard, is very damaging, and it's very difficult for you to navigate your feelings and come to terms to that single event that happened to you. Then there's chronic trauma.
Hmm.
Those are various episodes of trauma that took place. And then complex trauma, which is basically various episodes of trauma, but happen simultaneously. So I found myself now being ejected out of prison, now trying to now start my life over again. But how do I do it? How does one start their life all over again when you're considered a second class citizen and when you are on the receiving end of discriminatory practices because of what people think they know as opposed to what the truth truly is?
Hmm.
I don't know if any of your listeners have ever been lied on, been talked about, name been scandalized, someone accused you of doing something that you did not do.
Yeah.
Now just magnify that 10,000 times, and having to lose your freedom in the process, and then having to now serve a life sentence as being a second class citizen.
Mm.
But here is where the turning point comes.
Okay.
Um, while incarcerated, I penned my first book. It was entitled "Is There a Samson in You?" and is a book that parallels the life of Samson from the life of many men today and many struggles that we go through and many vices that we go through that Samson went through. And he found himself resting in Delilah's lap. And Delilah can be anything. Delilah can be an addiction. Delilah can be your anger issues. Delilah can be trauma. And so that book became a bestseller. And I also wrote 150 poems while I was away and began my second book in the midst of tutoring men, holding Bible studies, and volunteers coming in and using me in various capacities as far as different programs. And with all of those things that I did, it became a catalyst to me because unbeknownst to me that I became my first client as far as being a as far as counseling. And
Mhm.
I became my own client because I began to see men um, come to me with various issues stemming back
Mhm.
to when they were 10 years old, and we would talk about those issues. And then I just had the inherent ability to be able to pull out of them the answer that they were looking for all the time. So sometimes in life you can be in a very hard and desolate place, and that place can actually not only be a tomb but a womb.
Hmm.
The prison was a tomb to me because when you're out of sight you're out of mind, and people tend to forget about you because you're in a place that they consider to be dead. That's a tomb. But
Hmm.
even in the midst of a tomb, by the grace and by the power of the Almighty, He used that tomb to become a womb to birth me into my purpose and in my destiny. So those same men that came to me, unbeknownst to me, now I can see in hindsight that they were my clients and I was my own client and
Mhm.
working out trauma issues. And so in coming home, I enrolled in Lee University, and I received my undergrad bachelor's degree in Christian ministry, pastoral counseling. I didn't stop there, regardless of what society said. So I went back to the graduate school, and I received my master's degree in human services counseling, crisis response, and trauma. I didn't stop there because it's not over.
Mhm.
And so I went now to obtain my certification. So I have a certification in professional life counseling. I have a certification in trauma informed counseling. I
Mhm.
also have a third certification in sexual addiction recovery. And coming in contact with so many men who are basically addicted, but they're closet sex addicts.
Mhm.
They're weekend sex addicts. And so that brought me to where I am right now and my practice, which is entitled, as you mentioned at the top of the hour, The Shame Free Life, because I believe that shame is one of the issues that paralyze so many men.
Mhm.
Um, there's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt means I did wrong, shame means I am wrong. You internalize or you embody shame. So everything you do in life is shame oriented. And oftentimes we find ourselves in different situations, different sexuations, different type of friendships, different ungodly partnerships when it comes to business endeavors. Um, and a lot of that can be traced to undealt with trauma, undiagnosed trauma, and also
Mhm.
shame.
Wow, man, this is so good because I'm trying. There's so many things that I want to unpack here, because I think there's so much into your story. I'm going to start off talking about identity. Then I'm going to move into fatherhood as well because, you know, there are so many things, when you're bringing this up, and is you asked the question earlier, how many of you know somebody who's been to prison, or somebody, and thinking about ourselves, have never even seen the inside. But I don't know any black men who doesn't know anybody personally who's been to prison, right? Or who has been incarcerated. I mean, we all know somebody, because there's so many of us that have had that experience. And then the things that you were able to do while you're there, based on the identity you had for yourself before you ever went. And I want to kind of talk about that identity, because I know there was an identity that you would thought for a second that you would ever end up in prison, and then that identity that had to carry through. But like you said, the life prison that comes after post prison is another identity that now you have to deal with. And maybe just kind of walk us through. I mean, maybe the way you dealt with it is putting it on paper, or putting into books, or being able to talk to others, or yourself as a client. But I would love to hear your identity journey, based on, yeah, you had two parents, you had, people, oh, you can't, but it still ends up in this situation. Then we'll talk about fatherhood after that. But yeah, please share with us this identity journey.
Absolutely. Thank you for that profound question. So, according to the Pew Institute, 1 out of 9 people on death row, we're not talking about general population. 1 out of 9 people on death row are innocent. So if 1 out of 9 people on death row are innocent, and those statistics stem from approximately 8 to 9 years ago, how many people in general population are? So what I had to do, and what I had to come to terms with, I had to literally seek counseling myself. One of the first things that I did, other than becoming reconciled with my daughter, who, mind you, she became a prisoner herself, not in a literal prison, but in emotional, psychological, and spiritual prison. Because we had the relationship, my daughter and I, wherever you saw me, you saw her. Wherever you saw my daughter, you saw myself. I didn't know how to do her hair, so I would take her to the salon. I would always show up at PTA meetings, making sure that she's doing her homework, et cetera, et cetera. So it was very devastating, and she lost a part of her soul in this journey, as I lost a part of my soul. Trauma is basically a soul wound. To your question and to your point, when it comes to identity, Brian, one of the things that I did, aside from being reconciled with my daughter, I sought out therapy. I knew that where I was a very volatile place. And I had so much inner hostility that was built up against the young lady, her father, who later was fired from the police force because he committed domestic violence against a woman that was not his wife.
Wow.
They took his gun from him and committed him to desk duty. So now he's a cop without the power of a gun. And so later he was completely fired altogether because of indiscretions on the job. So with all of that happening, I had so many questions, not enough answers, a lot of anger issues that was built up on the inside. And it was basically eroding my soul. And so when I came in contact with my therapist, and shout out to Louise Suggs, if you're watching right now, she was very instrumental in walking me to my place of healing, walking me on this journey to healing, journey to freedom, just like your podcast. And I began to come to terms with, I may not be responsible for my trauma, but I am responsible for my own healing. And I learned the art of releasing, not necessarily forgiving, because I think that even according to scripture, in order to forgive, there must be some type of, I need to right what was wrong. And even the Bible reminds us, Jesus said in Matthew 18, if you have an ought with your brother, I don't even want your offering. Leave your gift at the altar. Go and get it right, then bring your gift. So there's a certain reconciliation that is due concerning trying to make amends of what was done wrong, or perpetrated against you. So I had to come to terms with, I may not get and I'm sorry. I may not get that.
Yeah.
So do I put my life on pause? And I put my life, Brian, on pause for, I would say, for 2 decades. For two
Really?
decades, I was serving another prison sentence. For 2 decades, I was in a prison of shame, condemnation, anger, resentment, duress, hypersensitivity,
Mm-hmm.
Hypervigilance, night sweats, nightmares, flashbacks. And so I had to seek therapy, and in doing so, uh, she helped me to unravel all of the layers that covered my identity.
Hmm.
And my identity was hidden upon layer upon layer upon layer of brokenness, not feeling good enough, hopeless, can't trust anybody, mad. I hate the criminal injustice system, and all of that. So I had to find the real me, and the real me was hidden under so many fragmented pieces who I was not, but I had to discover who I was, and finding my identity that kind of launched me into my purpose.
Thank you for sharing that, because that is such. I mean, we are who our identity is, right? One of the most powerful forces in the universe is being congruent with the identity that we hold for ourselves. And to have all those layers that are built on, and I think so many of us have those layers because we have been in some of the prisons that you talk about, and we don't know how to deal with it. And if we don't find somebody who can help us unpack it, and you know God sends people, into our lives that can help us with this. And somehow we think, especially as Black men, that we got to deal with this all by ourselves, and then we're
Yes,
going to have to figure it out all by ourselves.
yes,
And then we just go deeper and deeper and deeper into these silos. I love the word that you're using, is a shame-free life, because when I think of the emotion of shame, I don't know if there's a more devastating emotion that's out there, because it's me, right? It's not anything else. It's I feel bad about me because who I am. And so
mhm,
maybe it's just a little bit of like, you say shame free life, but that assumes that it wasn't always shame free. And maybe God talk to us a little bit about how you were able to release some of that shame that can hold us even in a harder prison or deeper prison because of that shame.
yes. Absolutely. Shame is such a paralyzing issue, that you can think that you're making strides and advancements in life, but you're really on a hamster wheel. Shame is not only paralyzing, but it shaves off years of your life.
Mm.
Uh, we live in Western culture, for example. Um, the cosmetic industry um, is an enormous industry as far as revenue.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong in beautifying yourself. But I think that there are many patrons that are dealing with shame based issues that are so pervasive that they need something to validate their self worth,
Mm.
because they don't like themselves. I don't like how I look. And so when we internalize shame, and that's what I did, I internalized shame. I allowed what someone thought of me, or claimed that they knew about me, or deemed me as, to become my identity. And so when we give that level of power over to someone, whether it's a parent, whether it's a child,
Mhm.
whether it's a pastor, whether it's whoever, when we give that level of authority over to someone, we're basically giving them the key to the prison door, and we shut the prison door. But we can't get out. You can't get out without the key, but you've given the only mechanism that can release you out of that prison of shame You've given it over to the person that you deem their opinion about you to supersede the opinion that is truly concerning you. And so it's paralyzing, and it is relentless in its pursuit to keep you down and to keep you out of your purpose.
Yeah. So you're living this life before you end up in prison, and you're in this courtroom that is going through this trial or whatever it is that you're there, and they create a verdict that says you're guilty. You are now going to go, and we're going to take you away from your life. At some point, you made a decision that you weren't going to let it beat you, that you weren't going to let whatever that criminal justice system take your life from you then. And then you started doing stuff in the prison that would then help other folks that you're around. Take me just through a little bit. I mean, I don't want you to have to relive a lot, but the decision that you had to make in your mind to be able to do that, because so many can't. So many can't. They are succumb to whatever that life is for that amount of time. And maybe what your hopes or your dreams were while you were there, or what your purpose was that you found that God gave you while you were incarcerated.
Absolutely. So I knew when I was 5 years old that I was different.
Mm-hmm.
It was something about me that was just different. By the time I turned 10 to 11 years old, before 12 years old, I would be able to have these prophetic situations or incidents or events that would happen in my life that would point to the reality that I'm different. For example, to answer your question, I would think about somebody name would just cross my mind, or their face would just pop into my head. And 5 minutes later, that person knocks on my door.
Oh, wow.
An hour later, that person calls me. I can think about a car as I'm sitting on the porch um, as a small child. And I would just think about a red sports car or a green sports car or whatever the color was, and the make and the model of that car. And I would go back in the house to get some water, step back on the porch, and that car would just ride down the street.
Wow.
So these were just examples that I was completely different. There
Mm-hmm.
was something about me. I was born to be different, and it became very more and more apparent to me when I would go to different churches, and people would I would be in the back row. Hey, little boy, come here. This is what God told me about you. So I knew that I was called by God to do something great, not necessarily conventional as it relates to being a senior pastor, but I was called by God, handpicked by Him. But I never wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Because I saw pastors and how they struggle. I saw my aunt, who was an amazing evangelist, and was very powerful in the word, and powerful in a lot of signs that followed her. And I would see how people would talk about her like a dog, how she would struggle financially, how she would pray for people and they would become well because of God, through her, but because of God. And they not offer her a dime for traveling 20 miles to pray for her. And they received a healing. So I said, you know what? That will not be me.
Mm-hmm.
I have my own thoughts about how my life will go.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a rapper. That's what I want, because I'm very good with a pen, and I told you I wrote 150 poems.
Yeah.
So I want to do that. I want to get into entertainment. I'm not interested in all that. Okay, I love God, but all that other stuff now. What God said, well, you know what? It's not what you want, but it's what I want, because I made you, and I know the plans and purposes that I have for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so, to answer your question, the turning point in me was finally coming to terms with, okay, God, I'm here. I don't have a long prayer for you, but I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
You were there. You know, you know, you know that I'm not guilty, but I'm in this place away from my daughter, away from my mother, away from my life. I'm just tired. Why? Why did you allow me to go through this? Why do I have to go through this? And a peace came over me. A peace came over me that I could not understand.
Mm-hmm.
And God began to take me to the scripture and show me that if I allowed my son to go through a kangaroo court on trumped up charges, he was not convicted of a misdemeanor. He was not convicted of a felony. He was not convicted of any of that, but he was convicted by the state of Rome as a capital offender, punishable by death. You can't get any higher on the echelon of horrific crimes, horrific the nature of something, than to be a capital offender. If I allowed my son to go through that, who
Mm-hmm.
are you?
Yeah.
I have a plan for you, just like I have a plan for my son. And it was the turning point that I said, you know what? Okay, you're right. What do I do? He began to send men to me. And from there, Bible study. From there, teaching men how to read. From there, counseling, coaching men. From there, officers begin to come to me about the marital problems,
Oh
a quote
gosh.
unquote inmate.
Yeah.
Officers begin to come to me. I've been watching you for a year and a half. And there's some other dudes around here. They've got the Playboy books and they go in the bathroom and they're doing certain things. But you, I see every time I see you, you're either praying, you're either talking to somebody, or you really doing God's work. You're not even supposed to be here. But let me ask you this question since you're here. I need some help about this situation. And
Mm-hmm.
so I begin to see as I begin to open up, and it was not easy, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
It was not easy to fight against the anger, to fight against the resentment and the shame. But the more that I began to make myself available, the more God began to now unravel who I truly am,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of where I am. And that was the turning point for me.
So you have your daughter, and how I'm hearing the story is she's not the daughter of the lady who accused you of the
No,
crime. It was a
no,
different.
not at all.
And so during the time you get pulled away, and during the time that you're in prison, you can't. Are you able? Is your daughter be able to come visit you? Is she allowed to? Are you still in connection with her? Because I can tell being a dad is super. It was something super important to you. Like like she's your life. She's your everything. How did you, I guess, deal with that? Why she would come to visit you, or why you were writing her letters and back and forth? Was there always this, I'm gonna be out soon, and then we will be able to continue? I mean, how did that relationship evolve? I guess, and how is it to this day?
Great question, Brian. Outstanding question, actually. So I don't mind being on the hot seat.
Okay.
Um, my daughter, at that time, she would come to visit me. My mother would bring her. At that time, my fiance at that time, when we were together, she would bring her as well, and she was very happy to see me. It but I could tell that as she began, as she aged, no. So when I left my daughter, again, I was taking care of her from age 1 to 11. I was snatched from her uh, at age 11. She was age 11 when I returned. She was age 16. So around 11 and 12, she just happy to see me. I'm going to be home soon. I love you, Dad. Don't worry about it. I'm here for you. I love you. She's here for me. So I had to be strong for her.
Mm-hmm.
It's something about prison that is so diabolical and demonic. Let me say that again. There is something about prison that is so diabolical and demonic, satanic, that it causes one to suppress your God given emotions just to fit into a system that will deem you as being weak unless you're strong every single day.
Mm-hmm.
You can't show any weakness because if you do, you'll become prey to someone else. And so I found myself suppressing those emotions while she's visiting me. As she began to grow in age, now age 16. By that time, unfortunately, she became a runaway,
Mm-hmm.
experimenting with drugs, experimenting with sex. Why? Was it because she was a bad child? No, not at all. Nor is her father a bad father. When we're talking about trauma, it manifests in so many different ways. And oftentimes we want to try to relegate it to being one symptom when it is multiple layers, and is very symptomatic on various layers. Some people internalize it, some people drink it away, some people run away. Well, in her case, she ran away from the reality of me not being there because we were just that tight. We were just that together. So in coming home, she had a lot of pent up anger. Because think about it, Brian. You were she was a child.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
so now your father's being taken from you, but in your mind, I left her. Even though that she can kind of rationalize, she's caught between two worlds,
mm-hmm.
caught between two schools of thought. I know that what he went through, he shouldn't have gone through it. He did nothing wrong. He was innocent. But at the same time, Dad, you left me. You left me because I was here and I had to fend for myself. You left me because I didn't have you to protect me. You left me. And so she had all of these bottled up emotions, and it exhibited itself as being anger and resentment,
Mm-hmm.
and being very hostile toward me. And hopefully, and we've had conversations in times past, but hopefully, um, I would love to see her at a much better place of wholeness and healing because she's an amazing woman. And those were some of the issues uh, that I had to deal with, anger issues and resentment within my own self as I begin to look at her and to look at now the devastation that she had that fell upon her, that she had to contend with. And it was almost like just a double gut punch, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then I can imagine there was some, that shame that we just talked about, and the belief that the reason that she is where she is because you were taken away and there was out of your control and nothing you can do with it. But how do you still not have those feelings that say, wait a minute, what could I have done to not be in this situation? Or, I don't know how much you replayed that
Mm.
over and over again. And I can imagine over those 5 years that you were in prison, that played over and over again is what could I have done differently?
Oh,
And when you
absolutely.
like, yeah, God saying, wait a minute, no, I put you here. So maybe take us, now to you're out. You've been out several years now, and you've done all your education, and you're a counselor, and you have all these things going on. What do you look forward to? What is the hope? What is the you live? You talk about you live in purpose now. You're living in this major. God has put you in this place, and now you're able to thrive. But there's got to be hope in the future now. I'm assuming that it's hey, I had to go through these things that I think of Mandela, or I even think of, like you said, Joseph. Who's in the prison, and and he didn't ask his brothers to put him in a pit, and yet he becomes second in command. So what's the yeah? Just talk to me about now.
Absolutely. But before I talk to you about now, there's something that I left out that I think is
Okay.
very pertinent to the conversation. So I talked about as far as the symptoms that my daughter exhibited that were very traumatic, right? When I was released, um, for a, I would say, a decade of my life, I was in a prison within a prison. I was in an emotional prison, and I completely just, you know what? I'm just going I'm just going to drink. I'm just going to drink this away. So
Mm.
there were periods of time where I saw myself being codependent. There were periods of time to escape the horrors of what I had to experience and have all of these emotions that I can't explain. I want to escape. I found myself escaping through
Mm.
these type of vices. So I can understand men when we find ourselves in certain situations, because if you don't have anybody to walk with you throughout this journey to freedom and wholeness, and you feel that you can do it yourself, you would do everything within your power to sabotage it.
Yeah.
So, um, in coming out of that to where I am right now, so the hope is now in what I do. See, sitting before you is not a victim. And I had to come to that reality. I'm not a victim at
Mm.
all. You know, that people may look at my situation, man, I don't know how you did it. Oh man, I heard about that. Man, I'm telling you that was straight up just that was BS, dude. How'd you do it? And
Mhm.
and there's a part of me I could just play into that, the victim role. Hey man, woe was me. No, not woe was me. No, I'm a warrior, not a whiner. And so what I do, I translate all of that energy, all of that fire into the lives of other men so
Mm.
that I can give them what I did not have. So what the prison system did for me, it broke me. God came and he made me in the midst of that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the scripture that says that had the powers of the world known that Christ Yeshua was the Savior of the world, then they would not have crucified him,
Mm.
because he went to the cross and came out of the grave with power and demonstration, that we can come out of our graves in power and demonstration as him being the unblemished atoning sacrifice. So me coming out of this tomb, it only ignited fire. See, for
Mm.
some men, unfortunately, they come out and they self-destruct. They come out, and there was a period where I was homicidal and suicidal within that 10-year span.
Mhm.
I was homicidal and suicidal, and God had to do a work in my life. So where I am right now, I give back. It gives me great joy to give men what I don't have. It gives me great joy for men to just be themselves, whether it's one on one, whether it's in a group, to see value in them and to hold them accountable to a higher standard that nobody ever held them accountable to, because they didn't see value in them. See, I don't know anybody who would put value um, in a dirty Kleenex,
Mhm.
as opposed to a $100 note or Bitcoin that's worth millions of dollars. No, you can't compare the two. And so there's so many men that feel like that dirty Kleenex, just disposable, just a throwaway. But I have the ability to see the value in them. Now I'm going to hold you accountable to what I see. Now we need to get you on board so you can see what I see, so you can hold yourself accountable, because it's time to elevate.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And just to think of the men that you can begin to work with and to unpack, or like you said, the different layers that we bury ourselves under, and
Mm,
until that onion is peeled, or the shame and the emotions and all the trauma and everything else is unrevealed, then it's really hard to live in that purpose.
yes.
And even though you went through a 10-year period of trying to figure that out, God was still next to you, holding your hand and walking you through that process. And I'm so I'm so thankful that he was there and that you now have that experience, because I can't give somebody that experience of what that meant to have to go through all those layers, because I've never experienced that to be able to do. Now, there's other things that I could do, but the things in the men that you're able to reach. I'm so excited. I'm going to take another group of men to Alabama in January again, it's a civil rights tour, but it's not like a typical civil rights tour, because not only are we learning about the history and the trauma that our like not quite our ancestors, right? Just our grandfathers and our fathers, dealt with, and our great grandfathers. But we deal with how we need to walk through that, knowing that this is what happened, and
Mm.
how do we work with ourselves, and how do we? I mean, we spent a lot of time during that tour just in relationship, and what does it mean with relationship, and that kind of stuff. And I want to invite you down when we go down there, because oh my gosh, what a difference and an impact you'll be able to make during that time. I can't believe we've already been talking an hour and we're just getting started. So this isn't going to be tonight. It might be the only show, for now. But I want to invite you back. I want to dig deeper into some of these areas that you have just begun on the surface of explaining to us. I see that there's been some people that are online that have not moved. I mean, sometimes you see the number go up and down and that kind of stuff. They are glued to the things you're saying. Is there any one or two things that you wanted to make sure that we talked about tonight that we didn't get the opportunity, that you don't want to leave, hanging out there until we have an opportunity to have another conversation?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to chopping it up with you at a later date. I think that'll be great. I just want to say to the men, a lot of times when we were going through certain things, it can be hell.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about, especially in our community as Black men, we feel that we can handle this by ourselves.
Yeah.
We love to ride solo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the chapters in my book. Is there Samson in you? Samson, he always wrote solo. He didn't have anybody in his life like a prophet Nathan that would tell David, "Hey, listen, man, how you living is foul, and you the man. You need to change."
Mm-hmm.
And so when we don't have anybody in our life or in our lives to be able to see past all of the trauma, all of the brokenness, all of the mistakes, all of whatever that's holding us hostage, then then we will always embody the theory that I got to handle this by myself. Nobody will be able to understand. And I felt that way. I felt that way for years because of the shame. I felt that way for years because of, trying to get in where I was never designed to fit in. Well, you do fit somewhere. I just want to tell you, you do fit. And if you find yourself going through something, and we oftentimes want to drink it away, smoke it away, go to the cigar bar, sex it away, whatever the case may be, splurge it away. But that's only temporary because you still have the same issue in the morning.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell you that you're not by yourself, and you don't have to be by yourself.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good. Well, again, I just want to thank you. I thank you for just being vulnerable, by being able to tell your story to us in a way that's impactful, but not just impactful, but a way that can give us hope that we may be going through some of the things that you went through and not know how to handle it. We may know people who have gone through some of the things that you have gone through, and we don't know how to help them. We don't know how to even begin that conversation with them. Is there a way, well, whether it's through your books or that people can get a hold of you? That is there a website, or please give us that information so that if somebody was impacted by this, whether it's live now or recorded later, that they've heard it, that they can reach out to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Yeah, you can simply go to my website. It's theshamefreelife.com. shamefreelife.com. You can download a free ebook that I have for you. So, man, please take advantage of it. It is for you. I know it's going to be an amazing read for you. If you want one-on-one coaching, group coaching, join the Samson Restored Movement. It's an online community just for men where we can just be ourselves. No women involved. We're having real conversation, brother to brother, and so that we can get to a much better place of healing. So that's the shamefreelife.com.
All right. Thank you. This has been your first podcast and you've enjoyed it. I want you to go ahead and hit the notification, subscribe button, do whatever the YouTube things are that we do, whether you're watching it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. But if you are in need, please reach out. You know, we've said this several times. God put us on this earth for community. He put us on so that we could lift each other up, that we could help each other, that we could be there for each other. And if you're trying to do it solo, I'm just telling you, you're doing it wrong, because that's not how you were created, and that's not how you get through it. And so I promise you, Ronald and I are going to have some more conversations. We're going to figure this out. I've just been so blessed tonight. And Ron, if you just have maybe another 30 seconds of just one final thought, and then we will close up the show. But I want to leave it with you before we end today.
Absolutely. Well, just in the immortal words of C.S. Lewis, he said that you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are right now and change the ending. The chapter is still have to be written. Your book of life has not been closed. If there's breath in your lungs and you're hearing me right now, the pen is in your hand. It's time to write another chapter. It's not over.
Oh man, amazing. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys on the next one. Have an amazing, awesome, just incredible day. Don't forget, you are God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. Let him wrap his arms around you and just love on you, because you were born for greatness. And that greatness is inside you, just needs to ooze out on somebody else, because you are also an answer to somebody else's prayer. So let just God be available for God to use you however he possibly can. We'll talk to you on the next one. Have a great night.